My name is Nicole. For those of you that don't know me, I am a mental health coach. And part of my mental health coaching, self care or developing self care practices, self care plans is a major part of what I do. And so, of course, one of the questions that I always ask people is, what does self care mean to you? What does self care look like to you? And the answers to that question are so varied. Um, Sometimes I get stuff like self care. What is that even? I don't even know what that is. I don't have time for that in my life. Or it could run the gamut from I like getting my nails done to taking bubble baths or, just there's such um a varied amount of answers. And that is one of the reasons why I felt it very important to recognize International Self Care Day that is coming up this Friday, July 24th. Um, and did you know that International Self Care Day being on 7/24 was was chosen very intentionally? The reason why International Self Care Day is on July 24th is to remind us that self care is not an event. It's something, it's a way of life. It is not just these moments that we create for ourselves, but it is the way we set up our lives 24 7, 7/24, July 24th. So, I thought that that was really cool when I started researching a little bit, because it really is true. One of the things that I find when I am coaching people around anxiety management, stress management, and my first question to them is, how often do you get time to recalibrate? How often do you get time to decompress from your day? How often do you get time to do the things that you enjoy? And often what I get back is, oh, I don't have time to do that. I don't decompress. There's no time to decompress. Um, or often, many times I get, I don't even know what I enjoy anymore. So a lot of my coaching stems around helping people to connect back to themselves, to slow down enough to get to know yourself again, raise your level of self awareness so that you're able to tap into the things that really fill you up, right? Because life is so fast paced and we can get ourselves in these patterns that are so detrimental to our well being. And so that's what this week is all about. So, everybody, this week I am going to be talking to a different woman every day. We are going to be having fabulous conversations around taking care of ourselves, maybe talk about some of the barriers that we have to that. We have got to be able to recognize because we were put here for a purpose, just because you are, just because you exist, just because you are breathing, you are worth the care, the energy, the love, the devotion that you are giving to all of these other things, and you are leaving crumbs for yourself, right? We can no longer do that. And that is why this week is so important leading up to International Self-Care Day. So, yes, yes. Self is first always, then everything falls in line. So true. I was thinking about this, Samantha, you and Samantha, we're already having the start to our little conversation, but the last time I was talking to you, Samantha, I know we talked a little bit about how your faith, how you were raised if you were raised in a faith tradition and how that can kind of impact your views um, on yourself and productivity and, service and helping other people. And I was thinking about that because I knew I was getting ready to talk to you again. And one of the scriptures that always comes to mind for me is love your neighbor as yourself, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. And we love to quote that. We love it. as we're talking about service to other people. But the reality is, how are you actually loving yourself? Do you really love yourself? Love your neighbor as yourself? Because a lot of the behaviors that we are inflicting upon ourselves in the name of productivity, seeking success, service to others is not love. It's not loving ourselves. We're actually hurting ourselves because we're overextending. We're not honoring our boundaries. We're not recognizing our capacity. All of these things. So, it is a narrative that we need to change the way that we've been operating. We absolutely must put ourselves first, right? We must put ourselves first. When I first started talking about self care, I remember some people in the faith community getting nervous. They were nervous for me. They were nervous because they felt like it was a message that was too self focused, right? It was too focused on you. And you shouldn't have people focusing so much on themselves. Well, for those of us that are in a um Judeo-Christian biblical faith, we there's scriptures all throughout the Bible that I believe negate that. When you what like the spirit of the living God living in you, honoring your temple, treating yourself, loving your neighbor as yourself, all of these things speak to the importance of you as a vessel. They speak. So if we're not giving our vessel what our vessel needs, then and we're trying to serve from empty vessels, that goes totally against what is being spoken to us in scriptures. And so I feel very passionate about bringing that portion of this out as well. Okay, there are a couple things I want to make sure I say to y'all who are listening and who will come back and listen again. Um, okay, so this other idea about self care, because International Self Care Day was established because not just in America where I am, but worldwide in our health system, they have recognized that there's a major problem with people being able to take ownership of their own health holistically. So that includes access to mental health, access to um, regular medical care, access to holistic treatments. All of the things that we now recognize, we now understand that without these things in our lives, there's deficits, there's detriments, and all around the world, there's different levels of access and different levels of deficit. So International Self-Care Day was created to raise awareness about all of those things. And I think it's important to think about that because I put a question out talking about, well, what are some of the things that concern you about self care, or what are some of the things that annoy you about the conversation? And some of the answers that I received was, well, just the fact that we have to have the conversation because a um, rest is a right of every human, right? Absolutely. Rest is a right of every human. But the self care conversation goes a bit deeper than rest, right? We know that I love rest because I'm always talking about the pause. That's the name of my Substack, the pause for solos, right? So I'm a big believer in rest. But the reason why I talk about the pause so much is so that we have space to really think about and really look at our lives in a way so that we can arrange our lives and do the things that really take care of us. So if that means we need to pause and figure out what we need to research as far as I don't know, some holistic care, or we need to pause and take a day where we're going to schedule all of our doctor's appointments, or we need to pause and help someone else who might not have access to something. Like it goes a little bit deeper than just the right to rest, right? It is that and, right? So self-care is about rest. Self-care is making sure that you're getting the rest that you need, but it's also making sure that you're taking care of yourself in all areas of your life. And it's not just an event. Yes, it is. You can get your hair done, go get your nails done and all of that. But when you go get your hair done and you get your nails done, or you buy a new outfit or whatever self care, whatever thing you love, at the end of the day, when you come back, is your life exactly the same? Are the patterns that you have set up for yourself still the same? Do you still have limited access to whatever mental health thing, or are you still skipping these important doctor's appointments that you need? Is the money issue, the debt still creeping into your mind? Like all of these things, are you still scheduling yourself with no margins and no boundaries, but you got your nails done, right? So it's really important that the conversation around self-care becomes a little bit more layered, and we're not just screaming, you need to do self-care, you need to do self-care. It is, we need to look at our lives holistically and understand where we're at, what season we're in, and set ourselves up in a way that shows that we're loving ourselves well. How do we love ourselves well? One of the ways that we love ourselves well is giving ourselves what we need. And a lot of times we don't stop long enough to even examine what it is that we need, to even feel in our bodies what it is that our body is speaking to us. Guys, I am actually in a somatic coaching certification class right now. It is amazing. It's amazing because as a participant in the class, I am getting coached, right? That's one of the ways that we practice. And getting in tune with what's going on in your body and how your body is speaking to you about what you might be needing is so powerful. And it can absolutely shift your whole, not only day, but sometimes trajectory of your life. But we don't pause long enough to do it. We don't pause long enough to tap in and to receive those signals sometimes. It can be life changing when we really take it to the fullness of what self care is, right? And listen, I'm loving this class. I cannot wait to bring it to my clients, and maybe even have some of my pause sessions be centered around this. It's really powerful. It's really amazing. And I'm so grateful that I'm in this class right now. And I think this day, July 24th, is a great day because it's like kind of like headed towards the end of summer, and y'all know fall is when people start to be like, "Uh-oh, we're getting into Q4. I didn't do my goals. I didn't do what I said I was going to do this year." And Q4 traditionally is when people go hard again. And so I think that July 24th is a great date, not only because it reminds us of the whole self care is 24/7, but it's right as we're going into the fall again. We're starting to think, like, I'm starting to think about things that I'm going to do in October for my business, like retreats and different events that I want to host for people in October. I'm starting to think about that now. And so I think it's important for us to have this kind of self-care conversation because I personally, I need to make sure that I'm not scheduling myself in a way that hurts me, that hinders me. We have to be so aware of our capacity and what we're able to do so that we can keep moving forward. That's a lot of the challenges that I see with the solopreneurs that I work with, is that they get so excited about their business and everything they're working toward, and then they burn themselves out. And before you know it, this idea that they were so excited about, or this dream or vision that they're so excited about, month one, month two in, it's over because it's too much the way they went about it. Not that the idea itself is too much. The way they went about the idea did not align with the capacity that they had. And that is such an important conversation. Um, Wish you could share this live, but you can share it because I actually have a podcast. My podcast is called Holistic Mental Health for Women Solopreneurs. So every conversation that I have this week on Substack Live, I will edit and upload to my podcast. So the podcast comes out every Monday. And so each of these conversations, there'll be one today, just in a little bit with Samantha. So we'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So 4 conversations. I will edit those conversations and they will come out in subsequent Mondays. So, like, this is honestly part of my self care. Having these conversations with these ladies is part of my self care because I just adore each and every one of the ladies that I'm going to be having. Um, yes, we can. Thank you. Um, Touch on mom guilt and taking time for self. So I am going to have, um, her name is Janeka Davis. She speaks specifically to mothers. So I will definitely write this down and remind her tomorrow, like, hey, we need to touch on mom guilt. She would be a great person to talk about that. I hope that it encourages you, gets you thinking about your own self, your own routines, and the way you're loving yourself. Um, the guilt thing is real. Being able to take time for yourself, um, particularly as a mom. I actually, okay, I'll share this part. I actually am not a mom, but every single role that I have had in my professional career has been in the care, counsel, and well being of children. So I have counseled, cared for, loved on hundreds and hundreds of children in my professional mental health career. Um, and the one thing that I have learned from working with all of those children is how important moms are. So, for example, I know you already know how important you are in your child's life, but I just need you. I need, I think sometimes when we're in our family system and we can't see outside, it can be difficult to kind of have um, the awareness and the understanding of what's going on. But me, as I like to call myself the auntie of everybody, not the mom. I am outside. I am observing. I am going into people's homes. I am doing therapy sessions. I am facilitating conversations between parents and children, between husbands and wives. That has been my career, right? Um, Being able to do that has given me kind of a different lens because I have seen countless households, countless interactions between moms and children, husband and wives. And I've learned a lot because of that. And the one position that I had where I was a mobile therapist, and what happened was the child was my identified client, and that child was usually at risk for out of home placement. So my role in that family was to keep that child in the home and or keep them in school. So they were either at risk for out of home placement or getting expelled from school. And these were not just teenagers. My youngest ones were 4 years old. So it ran the gamut from 4 to like 18. And the child was my identified client. And what I would get told constantly was, no, that child is your client. No, you can't help the mom do XYZ. The child is your client. No, you can't do this because the child is your client. Now, as I'm saying that to you, how much sense does that make? It makes absolutely no sense. Of course, if I'm going to help this child, I need to help their mom, right? I need to help their mom. And so I often disobeyed and would often get in trouble, but I had to, right? Because integrity to me is I need to help this mom if I'm going to help her child, right? So often those conversations that I would have with those moms who are feeling at their wits end, just feeling desperate for their child, um, they were struggling. And what I would tell them was like, you need time for you. And they're looking at me like, Nicole, are you kidding me right now? I don't have time to take time for me. Do you see what my kid is doing? Do you see how my kid is acting up? And I'm like, and I get it. Believe me, I do, because I would be in those houses and I would see what was happening. But the thing is that most people's situations were not as drastic as the families that were in acute care that I was dealing with. But the families that are not in acute care that I'm dealing with, they say the same thing to me. I can't do it. I can't stop. I don't have time. I don't. And I'm like, you do have time. Here's how we can do it. Let's reframe what it can look like for you. I think a lot of times when I think of some of the things my moms have said to me, they're like, "Well, I don't have all day to do XYZ." And I'm like, I didn't ask you to have all day. You don't have to have all day. I know in our hearts we want to have that space, but what can we start with? And a lot of times, I there's this I call it the power of the pause. Power of the pause. They're like, you start with 1 minute increments. You can take 1 minute for yourself, right? And do relation, breathing, listening, listening to nothing, sometimes sitting in silence, sitting in darkness. There's so many little things that we can start to do. And what I tell my moms is that this is something that you can do that you can also start teaching your child to do because these are these these little moments taken for yourself and explaining it to them like, hey, I have to do this because I need to be the best that I can be for you. I need to be the best that I can be on my job. I need to, if I don't do this, mommy's going to be irritated. Mommy's going to be this. Mommy's going to be that. Teaching them that for themselves as well, because you are their example. They follow you. So if you are running yourself ragged, never taking time for yourself, never creating a life that has margins in it, that's what you're teaching them. They're seeing that. And we don't want that for them. We don't want them to be our big ages and having these same conversations that we're having right now, right? We don't want that. We want them to grow up more aware, more in tune with their spirit, mind, and body and what their needs are. And they will as they see you doing that. And so that's one of the things that I talk to moms about is the legacy that they're leaving for their children of caring for yourself. But then there's also that reframe of it doesn't have to be some big event. It doesn't have to cost tons of money, right? These small little power pause moments, they start to add up. If you will do them, they will start to add up. And eventually, you start to see areas in your life. I actually do have a little bit more capacity. Oh, I actually could shift this around and do maybe this way, you know? So, all right, y'all. Lots of love to you. Remember, self care this week. We're talking about it, but I want you to not only talk about it with me, but I want you to really think about yourself and think about what you can do. Little shifts. What little shifts, whether it's a little mindset shift, a little action, something that you can do for yourself to allow more care of you into your world.